Hi guys, it's day 2 of remote learning at home, and I figured I would continue reading this book to you so that you at least found out the ending, considering you loved it so much. And we're halfway through. So here we go. Chapter 28. Bradley lay on his bed, on his stomach. He chewed the end of his pencil as he looked hopelessly at the arithmetic book opened in front of him. Next to the book was a piece of paper. In the upper right-hand corner he had written, Bradley Chalkers, Homework, Arithmetic, page 43, Red Hills School, room 12, Mrs. Abel's class, last seat, last row, black eye. His handwriting, which was messy anyhow, was made worse by the fact that he wrote with a dull pencil on top of a soft bed. He had stayed in Mrs. Abel's class as long as he could after the bell rang. Bradley, it's time to go home, Mrs. Abel finally said to him. He looked outside, unsure if Jeff and his gang of bullies were waiting for him. I have a question, he said. Mrs. Abel eyed him suspiciously. What kind of question? He tried to figure out what kind of question he had. An asking question. I see, said Mrs. Abel. May I ask it? He asked. Okay, she said reluctantly. He asked his question. What page is the homework on? The homework? Page 43. He wrote 43 on the top of his sneaker so he wouldn't forget, then took his arithmetic book and stepped outside. Jeff and his friends were playing basketball. He ran home. Question 1. What is 3/4 of 2/3? It was the most impossible question he'd ever seen. His mind wandered. Hey, Bradley, what are you doing? Asked Ronnie. Homework. What's homework? She asked. It's work you do at home. Is that supposed to be funny? She asked. No, really. That's what they do at school. They give you work to do at home, and they call it homework. You've never done it before, said Ronnie. I'm doing it for Carla. Now leave me alone so I can concentrate. Question 1. What is 3/4 of 2/3? Why are you doing it for Carla? Ronnie asked. He sighed. Okay, I'll tell you, but you can't tell anyone. Ronnie promised not to tell. We're in love. Really? Exclaimed Ronnie. How do you know? She kissed me. Oh, that means she loves you, said Ronnie. Are you going to marry her? Maybe, when I'm older. First I have to do my homework. I'm going to marry Bartholomew, said Ronnie. I know, said Bradley. Now let me do my homework. Question 1. What is 3/4 of 2/3? Hey, Bradley, what's going on? Asked Bartholomew. Leave him alone, said Ronnie. He's trying to do his homework. He can't concentrate when you're talking to him. Maybe I can help, said Bartholomew. What's the problem? What is 3/4 of 2/3? Bradley asked. 3/4 of 2/3, repeated Bartholomew. That's a tough problem, all right. 3/4 of 2/3. Let's see. You divide 4 into... No. You multiply 2 times... No. Of means divide, said the donkey. Like if you take half of something, it means you divide it by 2. You divide 3 by 2 and 4 by 3. Bradley started to write that down. Now, of means times, said the lion. You have to multiply everything. First, you have to reverse the denominators, said the fox. You don't reverse, you inverse, corrected the mother cocker spaniel. I think you have to find a common denominator, said the elephant. Not for multiplication, said the hippopotamus. That's only for addition. Multiplication is the same as addition, said the fox, only faster. You cancel out the 3s, said the kangaroo. You always cancel out 3s. You multiply the 3s, said the lion. Bradley kept erasing and rewriting and erasing and rewriting until there was nothing but a big black smudge covering his paper. On top of the smudge, he tried to write 3 times 3 equals 9. But as he did so, his pencil tore a hole through the paper. "The answer can't be 9, said Ronnie. "If you start with fractions, you have to end up with fractions." Bradley slammed the book shut. "None of you know what you're talking about," he cried out in disgust. He took the book, paper, and pencil and walked down the hall to the dining room. His mother was sitting at the table working a crossword puzzle from the newspaper. He plopped down next to her and sighed. She looked at him inquisitively. "I can't figure out how to do my homework," he complained. "Will you help me?" His mother smiled. "I'd be delighted. Let me see." He pushed his arithmetic book in front of her. "Page 43. She opened the book to that page and looked at Bradley's torn, smudged paper. "Okay. First, let me clear this newspaper so we can have a nice, neat place to work. While I do that, I want you to get a clean sheet of paper." "I don't have any more paper. This is all I brought home." He looked at her in disbelief. He wasn't allowed to "Oh, no. Sorry. There's some paper in your father's desk. Get a sharp pencil too." He looked at her in disbelief. He wasn't allowed to touch anything on his father's desk. She nodded. Bradley felt a little scared as he walked into the extra bedroom, which his father used as an office. He opened the top drawer of the old oak desk and carefully took out a pencil and a piece of paper. He shut the drawer, looked around, then hurried back to his mother. She smiled at him. He sat down and wrote, much neater this time. Bradley Chalkers, homework, arithmetic, page 43, Red Hill School, room 12, Miss Isabel's class, last seat, last row, black eye. "You have to put all that," he explained, "in case it gets lost." She read the first question aloud. "What is 3/4 of 2/3? He shrugged. "Okay," she said. "The first thing you want to do is write the equation." He still didn't know what to do. She wrote it for him. Hopefully you saw that. 3/4 times 2/3 equals. Whenever you see the word of, it means you multiply, she explained. Of means times, he said. "Right," said his mother. That was what the lion had said. "Now you cancel out the 3's, said his mother. That was what the kangaroo said. You cancel out 3's. Neither of them noticed that Claudia was standing behind them watching. "That's not how you're supposed to learn it," she said abruptly. Bradley turned around and glared at her. "You have to explain why you cancel them," said Claudia. "And they don't call it cancelling. It's called dividing by 1. "I just know the way I learned it," said Mrs. Chalkers. "If you want, I can show you, Bradley," said Claudia. He looked at his mother and then back at Claudia, then at his mother. "She knows the way they're teaching it now," said his mother. "You'll help me?" Bradley asked his sister. "Sure, why not? I got nothing better to do." Mrs. Chalkers stood up and Claudia took her place. "Don't do it for him," said Bradley's mother. "Make sure he knows how to do it for himself." Claudia worked patiently with Bradley for the rest of the afternoon. When he said he understood something, she made him explain it to her. That was harder. He understood it when she did it, but then he had trouble when he tried to do it himself. By dinner time, they were only a little more than halfway through. Bradley wanted Claudia to help him after dinner too, but she had her own homework to do. "You know how to do it," she told him. "You can do it yourself." "I need help," he complained. "I'll help you," said his father. "You will? Let's go to my office. We can work at my desk." Bradley couldn't believe it. They worked together. Bradley was surprised by how much his father knew. He made all the hard parts seem easy. Bradley was a little disappointed by how quickly they finished. He had liked working with his father. He brought his finished homework back to his room. Oh, I get it, Bradley, said Bartholomew. You multiply the numerators and denominators separately. But I still don't understand reducing. It's easy, said Bradley. Here, let me show you again. Chapter 29. Bradley was too excited to sleep. Mrs. Abel will be so surprised, he thought. She'll tell the whole class. Only one person got 100%. Bradley. But there were so many things that could still go wrong. What if I lose it on the way to school? He worried. What if Jeff and his friends steal it? Twice during the night, he got out of bed to make sure it was safely folded inside his arithmetic book. What if I did the wrong page? He was no longer sure whether Mrs. Abel had said page 43 or page 62. He tried to remember exactly what she said to him. He sat up in horror. She never said it was arithmetic homework. Mrs. Abel had just said a page number. She never said what book. She could have meant his history or language or any of his other books. He lay back down and trembled. His tears wet his pillow. He got out of bed early in the morning, checked to see if his homework was still there, then quickly got ready for school without eating breakfast. On the way, he stopped to make sure he still had his homework. As he opened his book, the paper fell onto the sidewalk, right next to a puddle of water. He stared at it, horrified by what he had almost done, then quickly picked it up and placed it back in his book. He held the book tightly, shut the rest of the way to school. Katie, knock it off. He was one of the first ones there. He had to wait for the doors to open. He kept on the lookout for Jeff and his gang. He stood with his back to the school wall so they couldn't sneak up behind him. He saw Andy. He thought Andy had seen him too, but if he had, he didn't do anything about it. When the doors opened, he was the first one into Mrs. Abel's class. He sat at his desk, last seat, last row, and waited. As the other kids came in, he saw them put sheets of paper on Mrs. Abel's desk. He wondered if that was their homework. He now had a new worry. He didn't know how he was supposed to turn his homework in. Jeff entered, placed a piece of paper on a pile on top of Mrs. Abel's desk, then came toward the back of the room. It must be his homework, thought Bradley. What else could it be? Sean, he said aloud. The girl who sat in front of Jeff turned around. Are you supposed to put your homework on Mrs. Abel's desk? Don't tell me what to do, Bradley, Sean snapped. You worry about your homework and I'll worry about mine, okay? She turned back around. It was almost time for school to start. What if I have to put it on her desk before the bell rings or it doesn't count? He fumbled through his book for his homework, stood up, then headed for Mrs. Abel's desk. He became more nervous with each step he took. His mouth was dry and he had trouble breathing. He could hardly see where he was going. He felt like he was going to faint. Mrs. Abel's desk seemed so far away. It was like he was looking at it through the wrong end of a telescope. Sorry. It's all right, I'm just recording. Give me 1 second. Where am I up to? He became more nervous with each step he took. His mouth was dry and he had trouble breathing. He could hardly see where he was going. He felt like he was going to faint. Mrs. Abel's desk looked so far away. It was like he was looking at it through the wrong end of a telescope. His heart pounded and his homework rattled in his hand. Somehow he made it to her desk and tried to focus on the sheets of paper the other kids had put there. It looked like the arithmetic homework, page 43. But instead of feeling better, he felt worse, like he was going to explode. Do you want something, Bradley? Asked Mrs. Abel. He looked at his homework, shaking in his hand. Then he tore it up in half and dropped it in the waste paper basket next to Mrs. Abel's desk. He instantly felt better. His head cleared and his breathing returned to normal. His heart stopped pounding. He walked back to his desk, took a deep breath, exhaled, and sat down. He folded his arms on his desk and lay his head down sideways across them. He felt sad but relieved as he gazed at the gold stars. And we'll leave it there. Stay tuned for tomorrow.